Hey, everybody, welcome to the Supernatural Beer Bros podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and I'm joined today by my esteemed brother up in Maine with the Skeeters.
What up?
What's crapping?
Living the dream, man.
Are gay.
Trying to get over a little case of the Rona.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I was supposed to introduce you as Ronny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a little sickly.
You are here?
So today, and I saved this one for you, we're talking Giants.
Oh, shit. Yes, well.
Oh, you'll come to find Sean Connery pretty quick yourself.
Sean Connery. Yes, well.
Yes, well.
You're fired!
So we're talking about giants. These giants, like that damn Sasquatch.
Yeah.
That damn Sasquatch.
Yeah, so where are we getting at here? Hold on. What the fuck is
I'm pretty sure that's the noise that giant at Kandahar made when he scared that U.S. service member on his spear.
You mean that one?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God. That's terrifying.
Could you imagine, Andy?
Shit, I'd walk up there.
Coming into contact with something like that.
Dude, that thing came out of the cave, I'd be like,
You are hairy like
Would you pull the I'm Tyrone on him? I'm Tyrone, I'm here to fuck your wife. Long dick style.
Oh man. No, I don't think you give me the chance.
Probably just as well, because her snatch probably smells like fucking warm turtle tank and fucking dead skunk.
Oh my God. You're killing me, Ronnie.
What?
No. Well, do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! Fucking thing sucks!
That's what you say when you smell that fucking nasty twat.
Oh my God.
Fuck it. Live. Yeah, so there's plenty of examples of giants being found here and there. So 7 proofs that giants.
Did giant females have giant titties?
Well, I'm sure they were proportional to their overall size.
Excellent.
You're killing me.
Excellent.
Oh my God, you're not supposed to prompt my sound effects. So,
You're a little behind the power curve.
7 proofs that giants existed. Genesis chapter 6 tells us there were giants in the earth in those days and afterwards. The biblical Goliath was said to be only one of 4 brothers. There are countless tales of giants all over the world, from Norse, Indian, Mayan, Aztecs, Incan, and Greek lore. What if giants are not myths at all, but a part of our actual history that has been hidden from us up until now? By the way, if you want to know more about giants, there is an excellent book by Steve Quayle called Genesis 6 Giants Volume 2 that shows legends, myths, and oral traditions about giants may not be so far-fetched as you have been taught. Blah, blah,
Oral
blah, blah.
traditions.
Oral traditions. The trisexuals. Try anything once.
I love oral traditions.
Hold on, Ronnie. Where is it? Would you peg him?
I wouldn't peg him, but I'd peg his wife. Long dick style.
Oh, for fuck's sake. All right, so the Giants of Ecuador. In 2013, after heavy storms in Ecuador, a large female skull was found in Aloha province. Scientists determined the skull was approximately 600 years old. The discovery of the skull inspired a search for the rest of the skeleton, the parts of which were found and assembled a few weeks later.
How do they know that it identified as a female?
Were they biologists? I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea. So
I'm not a biologist.
the female skeleton stood 7 foot 4 inches tall, which was astounding considering that the average height of a woman in those days was only 5'8".
Boy, she'd palm your head like a basketball. Just pick you right up.
She'll throw you over her shoulder.
Come here, boy. Come here, boy. We're going to make a man out of you tonight.
Come here, boy, and get in there nice and deep like.
She'd palm by you Andy's head and pick him right up.
Further research led to the discovery of 5 more giant skeletons in the same area. All of the skeletons were between 7 and 8 feet tall and were buried in deep, elaborate graves. So, right here, 20 plus foot tall, ancient giant skeletons on exhibit for world to see. Ecuador Giants 2017. Should check this out. I did
not, but we should check that out.
I didn't know it was a video. Look at these things.
Plus foot tall, ancient giant skeletons are now on exhibit for the world to see. They are the giants of Ecuador, the Ecuadorian giants, over 7 meters tall. In Loja province of southern Ecuador and the Peru border, there have been many strange relics that have been uncovered. Bones and full skeletons, very similar to those of humans, but of incredible size. These skeletons, these ancient artifacts, have been watched over for many years by several guardians in the beautiful valleys of that province. By far, the most famous and well-known of these guardians was Father Carlos Miguel Vaca, who guarded until his death in 1999 several bones and fragments unearthed from the site called Chanjayminas, which translates means God's Cemetery. Several fragments were redirected to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington of the United States for people to study their density, age, and weight, etc. This was broadcast on television program for Ecuador, which lasted over 2 hours as a documentary led by renowned director Alfonso Espinosa de los Monteros. So for the present, some of these pieces that have been collected and shown to the world by renowned UFO researcher Klaus Donna. Other important relics and fragments are known to be in private collections held by people who are not interested in sharing them, at least.
So, it's a UFO researcher?
Well, it falls in with, the Nephilim stuff and all that. So.
It's weird.
It's not for the public. These ancient skeletons, the giant ancient skeletons of Ecuador, have been studied by different scientists and anatomists from 7 fragments, and these scientists confirm that these ancient giant skeletons are part of a human skeleton that was, however, 7 times the size of a modern human being. Quartz formations, porosicades covering the surface of the bones, indicate that the relics were tens of thousands of years old. I'll leave a link below for you so that you can see the actual video. It's about 2 minutes long, but it's worth seeing. I'll leave links below for you for this. These are the 7 meter or over 20 foot tall giants in Ecuador. They're just another of the additions of huge, giant, ancient skeletons found in North America. We've had many of these giant skeletons found in Wisconsin, anywhere from the northeastern coast to the southern and California areas. Of course, those skeletons are not to be found in American museums, whereas the Ecuadorian museums has them on exhibit.
Yeah, the American museums don't have them on display anymore because the Smithsonian destroyed them all.
Yeah, that one article said they destroyed literally thousands.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. You know what? I don't understand that. Like, what do they stand to gain by fucking destroying them and lying to us that giants never existed? Like, where's the gain? Where is the gain in the lie? Like, what's the reason to lie?
Because they would have to totally rewrite history, and they would have to admit that everything they thought they knew about history was wrong.
Yeah. So?
And a lot of these high up professors and people are so, their egos are so fragile that they absolutely could not admit that they were wrong because they think they know everything.
This person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice.
Oh, God. Those are some enormous fucking skeletons, though.
They are. Yeah, just to put it in perspective, the T-Rex only stood about 12 feet tall. These skeletons are over 20.
Well, he was 12 feet tall when he was moving. If he decided to rear up on his hind legs and stand up straight, he'd be close to 20 feet.
Right, so you're talking about human skeletons that are as big as T-Rex.
These skeletons, these ancient artifacts, have been watched over for many years by several guardians in the beautiful valleys of that province. By far, the most famous and well-known of these guardians was Father Carlos Miguel Vaca, who guarded until his death in 1999 several bones and fragments unearthed from the site called Chanjaiminus, which translates means God's cemetery. Several fragments
Didn't we hear
were
this
redirected
already?
to the Smithsonian Institute
Sure did.
in Washington of the United States for people.
Interesting, but I'm not interested in listening to it twice. So, they were found at two separate sites, leading scientists to conclude that they were probably from two different tribes. The remains of a much larger giant were found in Ecuador in 1964. Father Carlos Vaca, a priest who worked with hospitals, was called upon to examine some strange bones found in the mountainous area. Vaca determined the bones were human, despite being incredibly large. The bones were taken to Austrian artifact researcher Klaus Dona, who allowed several experts to view the bones. They all came to the same conclusion. They all belonged to a human who likely would have been over 25 feet tall. They also concluded that the bones were over 10,000 years old.
That makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
That would put them at pre-flood.
Yeah, pre-flood. That's during the Ice Age, actually.
The end of the Ice Age, yeah.
Benjamin.
Howdy, howdy.
Benjamin.
Hope
We hope
you've
you
been
Benjamin too.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, man.
Who is this person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice?
My God, Andy.
Run it up, bitch.
We'll do it live.
Runneth up, bitch. Thou doth not want these hands.
Oh, I want all the smoke.
Oh, God.
I see, saith the man, declareth the man who is deprived of sight.
Don't think just because you old you immune to this work.
It's all coming back to me now, the blind man said as he peed into the wind. So you got your video killed for a reason, Ben, or can you still see, or what are you doing?
I have it killed for a reason.
Okay. Let me share screen again. Where we at? All right, so check out these skeletons, Ben. Let me enlarge this again. Look at that. What
Now,
the
what's
fuck?
what's the story of them skeletons?
They're
over
in,
20
they're
feet
in
tall.
Ecuador on display in a museum.
And
Ecuador.
they're over 20 feet tall.
I mean, are they models or are they confirmed to be like?
No, they're
like,
confirmed to be legit bones.
all right. Shit.
Yep, and they're also confirmed to be over 10,000 years old, making them pre-flood. So that would go along with the biblical story of giants being on Earth prior to the flood.
Yep.
Nephilim.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, these things are, look at it, is obviously human. I mean, the skull structure to me looks a little different. If you look at this, kind of looks more, especially in the eye area, it looks a little more ape-like to me. But
No, because they don't. It doesn't have a big brow ridge.
true. I don't know.
All the great primates, besides humans, have a pretty pronounced brow ridge.
Okay, but look at this facial structure here with the eyes where the nose is, and look at the shape of where the teeth are. Tell me that doesn't look strange to you.
Yeah, no, it is. It is strange. It's definitely not modern human bone structure, for sure. But
Yeah. So it's definitely not modern human. And whatever. Okay, so I read that already. 10,000 years old. So the Kentucky Dover Mound. The Dover Mound in the state of Kentucky, USA, is a large Native American burial ground within which was found the 7-foot-tall skeleton of an Adena man. What was more interesting than his height was his abnormally elongated head and disproportionately large torso in relation to his legs. At Native American burial grounds in Ohio, similar remains were found of incredibly tall men with elongated heads and disproportionately large torsos. And there's another video here. Maybe
Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today. This is by request. Now, my Ancient America series, one of the questions I get most often is what has been found as far as some really tall people. Some people call them giants. I don't. They're just as tall as the tallest people today, so they're not giants. But coming from 2,000-3,000 years ago, they are very, very tall people, and they had to have some stature in their culture based on their height. That is my opinion. We're going to go down one of the stranger mound sites that was excavated. One of the stranger stories. This is Dover, Kentucky, a really small town here. And this is one of the more frustrating mound site videos I've done just because I can't pinpoint where this mound was. I'll tell you exactly where I think it was. And this was excavated about 70 years ago, totally.
We're not interested in what you
out.
think.
I think it was down right in this area somewhere, but it says excavations done in the 1950s. This road is still called the same road. It says it was 1,000 feet east of this road, so I'm guessing somewhere in this area right here. But here is an old photo of the Dover Mound before it was excavated. Permission was given to excavate in this mound in 1950 by the owner of the property, Mrs. Perry Barrett, on the condition that the mound be totally removed. Here is what was remaining of the mound, what hadn't really eroded away over the many centuries since it was built. This was roughly 20 feet tall at the time of this pick here, and it was used as a hog breeding area on the farm. Here you see an old pick of the excavation, and this comes from a book called The Dover Mound by William S. Webb and Charles E. Snow. Here you see a truck backed up to the lower part of the mound, and there was trees growing in and around it that were centuries old here. But this will give you a little idea of scale. Not the largest structure, but when it's made pretty much one basketful at a time, pretty impressive structure coming from maybe 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, in that ballpark. Here is a pic of the excavation work done here by midsummer 1950. Here it says the mound put in condition for the winter of 1950-51. Mr. Perry Barrett is standing at the edge of the excavation. He was owner of the property. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to determine the base of the mound for their archaeology work. And the base of the mound they found was down about 3 feet lower than the current surface of the land. Now here you see a diagram of the mound, and there was burials put in the very outside of it that dated to roughly about 2,000 years ago. But what I want to concentrate is this area, the central upper part of the mound, and there was a log tomb in here and 4 burials and one of the largest skeletons found in an Adena mound. Here is the base of the mound, and then cremations under small mounds of marl. There was burned bones found down at the very base down here, and these cremations had over them a 6-inch wide layer of fist-sized river stones. But number 3, log and bark tombs and mound section of mingled loads of marl and sandy clay loam. 4 is the big fired area right next to these 4 burials that I'm going to talk about at the end, where the large skeleton was found. And then the layer 5 comes from about 2,000 years ago, and there was a few intrusive burials in the very exterior of the mound. Now here is a dog jaw from burial number 4, and we have found these in many mounds, and I think we have an explanation for these now. Here is an area excavated from the mound where the burials were. Sheets of mica were placed under the skull, and that is really strange. Sheets of mica. Here is what they described as curved mica strips found at the feet of one of the burials. And I'm just not sure. I didn't look into it for this video, but is mica available in this area? And
Sure
mica
it
has
is.
some pretty interesting characteristics. And here are the burial statistics, what was found in here, the artifacts found with who was buried in here. But here they tell how these graves were made, and the logs were made with 5 of the graves, bark 8, bark used above and below the skeleton 12, burials covered by small clay mounds, there was 8 of those, red ochre observed in graves, 11 of the 19. Total burials with artifacts in association, there was 19. Burials with copper artifacts, 14. Burials with mica artifacts, 3. Also flint, 3. Burials with shell beads, 4, probably from Florida. Burials with leather or textile fragments preserved, there was 10. So that gives you a good indication of what was found in here. Now in that main part of the mound where the log tomb was, that was burned, it says this was a group of 4 extended bodies, 3 males between the ages of 25 and 30 and a female about 13 years old, placed at the center of a heavy bark layer about 15 feet in diameter. This bark layer was laid on a floor of small logs and poles placed side by side and centered about stake 5 R55 at an elevation of 15.5 feet above the benchmark. The bodies have been placed side by side, 3 close together and a 4 slightly separated, but head to foot. The remains of burial 40 is one of the largest known to Adena. The skull foot field measurement is 84 inches. Some of the bones were calcined. The remainder were heavily smoked. The grave showed evidence of the use of red ochre at the time of burial. Some of the shell beads accompanying these burials were partially calcined and broken, and others covered with soot. The earth layer covering these burials was burned on top and discolored by the large fire on top of the grave. The underside of this earth was also colored red by the fire, which burned the logs and bark constituting the tomb covering. There was thus much charcoal remaining from this fire. Sample V42 was taken for radiocarbon dating with the results indicated above, and that was determined to be about roughly 2,700 years ago. So a
And
skeleton
there was much
over 7
rejoicing.
feet, 2 inches tall during life, probably just a little bit taller. But here, found with the large skeleton, one of the strangest skulls I've ever seen, says these 4 burials were covered with red ochre and then set ablaze, but the cremation only smoked most of the bones and didn't destroy them entirely. I wonder if the 7-foot man was the chief and the other 2 men were his bodyguards or shamans, and the girl perhaps a princess or a wife possibly sacrificed to accompany her husband into the afterlife. Those are all assumptions. I will leave this link below, but it says here, left oblique view of skull of burial 42, an adult male with very prominent nose and chin. The back of the skull shows a pronounced degree of flattening. That is a very strange skull. Now, I will leave a few links below, but here are some of the skulls that were found here. They don't have one of the giant 7-foot tall skull, but it says cranial analysis. Not only do the Dover people show the results of head shaping or cranial deformation, but they exceed the total Kentucky series in the great width and height of the skull vault. On the left is the one skull I already mentioned. On the right, it says front and side view of the skull of burial 54.
That and that are totally different. That is not human.
They don't look human.
I mean, look
That's
at
for
this.
sure.
Straight line on the skull, and then you got these overhangs.
His head's shaped like a fucking mushroom.
Yeah. It looks like a circumcised wiener.
He's from the tribe of biggest dickus.
Biggest dickus.
He's got a mushroom stamp.
There's no excuse for you walking around looking like a freshly circumcised dick.
You want to be bald? Do what I did. Wait a while.
Oh, God. All right, the New York Giants.
Ba-da-ba.
Boom, psh.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
God damn thing sucks.
So, in 1871, an archaeological dig at a Native American burial ground, again, unearthed 200 giant skeletons, some measuring up to 9 feet tall. It was also estimated that the remains could have been up to 9,000 years old. At the time, the discovery of these remains was widely reported in the media, but today the remains have disappeared because the Smithsonian got their hands on it.
All right, what media? Like New York Times? Like, here's the thing. I hate.
I'll show you right here.
I hate these little teasers when they're like, it was widely reported in the media. Okay. Like newspapers.com exists. I have an account. Tell me what newspaper and I'll go to newspaper.com and look it up.
Smithsonian admits to the destruction of thousands of giant human skeletons in the early 1900s. A U.S. Supreme Court ruling has forced the Smithsonian Institution to release classified papers. Why would they be classified? Dating from the early 1900s that proves the organization was involved in a major historical cover-up. The historical cover-up allegedly destroyed evidence showing giant human remains in the tens of thousands and had uncovered all across America. The pieces of evidence were ordered to be destroyed by high-level administrators to protect the mainstream chronology of human evolution at the time, according to the court ruling. The allegations stemming from the American Institution of Alternative Archaeology that the Smithsonian Institution had destroyed thousands of giant human remains during the early 1900s was not taken lightly by the Smithsonian, who responded by suing the organization for defamation and trying to damage the reputation of the 168-year-old institution. During the court case, new elements were brought to light as several Smithsonian whistleblowers admitted to the existence of documents that allegedly proved the destruction of tens of thousands of human skeletons, reaching between 6 feet and 12 feet in height. A reality mainstream archaeology. A reality. What? A reality, right? Mainstream archaeology cannot admit to. Oh, okay. Never mind. I've had far too many beers. Okay.
Today, Junior.
Andy, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Today, Junior.
So, a reality mainstream archaeology cannot admit to, for different reasons, claims AIAA spokesman James Churchward.
Yeah, they're fragile egos. They simply cannot admit that they don't know everything about history, and
Now
they have to cover it up.
Check it out, Ben. This picture here, that is a femur, a human femur.
Well, here's the thing though. Like for me personally, it's like, why wouldn't they want to publish this? Because then they become they'd make fucking, bucket loads of money for centuries to come. It's like, hey, come look at these enormous skeletons of human, primordial humans. Like,
because there were professors and curators at the Smithsonian that simply, their fragile egos simply would not allow them to admit that they did not know everything about history.
Hey, check this out.
So they covered it up.
A trans species man who identifies as a squirrel was arrested for 2 20-ton peanut truck heists.
Oh my God. Sounds like Florida man. Is the guy from Florida?
I don't know. It just says trans species man.
Man, good for him. At first, I thought you said a penis heist, though.
Andy, there's
What?
one that's a hairdresser was arrested for making voodoo dolls out of customers' hair.
Look at this one. Cannibal killer slaughtered and ate 23 pizza delivery men, 6 Jehovah Witnesses, and 2 postmen in the last 7 years.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Look at this fat fuck. No wonder he's so big.
He's eating good.
This fat bastard right there. You look like a baby. Get in my belly.
I mean, he ate the pizza afterwards, so there's the calories there.
Pizza's gonna order out for you.
A Florida fisherman lost at sea for 14 days claims he was sexually assaulted by mermaids.
Oh shit, he was begging for it.
It's kind of like that Family Guy clip where Lois has a fantasy about mermaids, but the fantasy turns out to be that it's a mermaid head with a lower body, and it's like, this is what you wanted.
Friggin'
if it was the other way around, I wouldn't have a penis.
If Ronnie was out there on the boat, he'd be like, Uncle Ronnie's got a game for you. Where's my Vaseline?
Getting violently pegged by mermaids.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Call me Captain John. Call me Captain John.
So,
Call me Sebastian when you talk to
Oh my
me.
God, Andy.
so a turning point of the court case was when a 1.3 meter long human femur bone was shown as evidence in court of the existence of such giant human bones. The evidence came as a blow to the Smithsonian's lawyers, as the bone had been stolen from the Smithsonian by one of their high-level curators in the mid-1930s, who had kept the bone all his life and which had admitted on his deathbed in writing of the undercover operations of the Smithsonian. Yep.
Mm.
So, in other words, the bone was real. Some guy that worked at the Smithsonian stole it, and eventually that became that became the proof the Supreme Court needed to mandate the release of the documentation. All right, so here we go, Ben. Here's the juiciness. We're coming up to the juiciness. So one of the most famous giant footprints was found outside Mpuluzi, South Africa. Mpuluzi. It was found 100 years ago by a hunter, and locals named it the footprint of God. The footprint is 1.2 meters long, and if the rest of the body was sized to proportion to the foot, the giant that made it would stand between 24 and 27 feet tall, like in Ecuador. The footprint is in granite, one of the hardest rocks on Earth, and there are no chisel marks around it, meaning that whatever made the print must have stepped in the rock while it was still molten. It is estimated that the print could be anywhere from 200 million to 3 billion years old. If the correct age is at the upper end of the scale, the print was made when supposedly the only life on Earth was microbial life. But even at the lower end of the scale, it could not have been made by any human ancestor we know of. Check it out, Ben. And keep in mind here, this thing only has 4 toes.
Wild.
You got a big toe, and then you got 3 small toes. That's not a human footprint.
Unless it has like a fused pinky toe at the very end there. Like I feel like I see potentially 5. Maybe there was a fused toe. But yeah, otherwise it looks like 4.
Looks like 4 to me. I don't know.
I concur. I'm not a
We are at
biologist.
the famous site of the giant footprint, or the footprint of God, here near Mpuluzi in South Africa, very close to the Swaziland border. Now, this is one of the greatest examples of an ancient footprint, a giant footprint about 4 feet high in rough granite. It's between 200 million and 3 billion years old. That's what geologists will tell you. I'm going to just take you, if you follow me, up to the top, where it's imprinted against the side of the rock, which means it's been around for so long that the tectonic plates and the movements have actually pushed it up at the apex of this little outcrop.
Who is this person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice?
It's quite spectacular, so just walk with me and I'll show you. I don't know of any other example of a footprint in rock that is as amazing as this. And this should be drawing 20 million tourists to South Africa every year, and nobody knows about it. It's unbelievable.
Having a little trouble climbing that hill there, fat boy?
Reminds me of when Homer Simpson was climbing Mount Everest and using his oxygen tank.
Let's get closer.
Get on now, piggy. Really?
Oh wow. It's just beautiful. Look at this. There's the, you know, when you there's the big toe and the other 4 toes down to the small toe, down to the heel. What's fascinating about this is anybody that does a study of this will notice this piece sticking out here. It's like when you put your foot in mud and you pull it out, your toes will lift up a little mud where your toes were, and that's exactly what seems to have happened here. This rough granite is just it's pulled up.
So where's the other
This
print?
overhang here, it's spectacular. And I see that people have been visiting here because they've been leaving little coins here, which is wonderful. Maybe just come closer and show.
Hey, you know what they say? If they got big feet, you know, something else might be big too.
Like, why is, I mean, obviously the earth shifts over millions of years. But why is that like on the side of a rock that's upwards? Like, that's kind of
Tectonic,
weird to me.
Well,
tectonic, you know, geological shifts. Shit
well, I
going on.
mean that particular outcropping of rocks, I mean, it could have been turned upright by anything.
I mean, I agree. Where's the other footprint?
Maybe in the Great Deluge, the flood. I don't know, but
Who
something.
cares where the other footprint is? The fact that even one footprint survived potentially 3 billion years is astounding.
Yeah, but that's a legit footprint because it's like it was saying in the description above the video. There's no marks anywhere around it to make you think that this was somehow worked with a chisel or
Yeah, there's no
whatever.
tool marks.
Okay, I was wondering about that. All right.
Yeah.
There are no tool marks visible. Basically, this was an impression made while the rock was still soft.
Yep. And you can tell because right here where it kind of, like you said, when you lift your foot, like, you know, when you're walking, when you step down, you kind of go heel first and then you rock to your toes. And then as you take your next step, your weight shifts to the front. So like if this was kind of like mud before or really soft, when you rock to the front with his weight and this kind of just squished up, I mean, you could tell it looks like slag, you know, almost like, you know what I mean? Or you don't know what I mean.
Very interesting.
Yeah, actually, it's in the other details that it seems to matter. Like when he's talking about the like the lifting of the foot in, wet sediment or whatever it might be. Like just those details matter.
So what do you think, Ben? You think this is God's footprint?
I don't know if it'd be God's footprint. I mean, potentially a giant creature.
Nephilim.
Yeah,
Could be
no,
Nephilim.
God drowned all the fucking giants. So
Well, see, they called them Nephilim and that they were giants, you know, among men. But you know, that is there any description in biblical texts of exactly like how big the Nephilim were? I mean, I don't think there is.
No, there's not. No.
no,
Like,
and the
it's 2 cubits long, like nothing like that.
yeah, no, friggin' some giants are longer than others.
Your mother's been telling you stories about me again. Eh?
Lord's been telling stories about me again. Yeah, I mean, the only time the Bible seems to get specific about measurements is like, for example, Noah's Ark. Like people have reconstructed Noah's Ark based off of the biblical description, like the actual measurements, and then like the measurements pertaining to like the temple. So like, no, like Goliath, for example, they didn't provide like a height for Goliath and who fought David.
Yeah, all they say is that David killed him with a rock.
Yeah, I mean, these are giants among men. So, like Goliath, for example, is probably like, obviously, this was well post flood, post deluge. So he was probably like 7 feet, 7 or 8 feet, which obviously would make him a absolute monster. But
Is David the one that sent his friend out to die in a war so he could marry David or marry his friend's wife?
yep.
That was David. Huh? It's pretty messed
Oh, there
up.
you go.
Well, it's funny because that was David, because I think the woman was Bathsheba, because what had happened was he got her pregnant and he tried to recall Uriah, that's his name, Uriah, back from the front lines, and is like, hey, you've been gone for a while. Why don't you spend time and have relations with your wife? and like he kept like fouling up his plan. It's like, no, Lord, I don't feel right. Well, the troops are out there fighting, and I'm here enjoying wine and making love to my wife, basically. So
Jody.
he was totally fucking up his plan. So eventually he had him killed in battle.
So Jody's always been a thing. Hey, don't worry about your wife at home. Jody's taking good care of her.
David, King David of Israel is the original the OG Jody.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I never thought of that before. Shit.
I remember one time when I was having to do push-ups because I got in trouble. He's like, hey, and I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time, or a wife or whatever. And the fucking drill sergeant, was like, shit. He's like, I bet Jody back at home is pushing harder than that.
Tugging and pulling and pulling and tugging.
I was like, joke's on you. If Jody's pushing, it's not anything having to do with me. Oh, that was great.
Well, yeah.
It looks like a Bigfoot footprint.
Whatever that is, it's insane.
That damn Sasquatch.
That damn Sasquatch.
I mean,
no, it's not a Sasquatch because the Sasquatch doesn't have that arch. This is a very human type arch on the front.
That's right. Sasquatch is flat-footed.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, I don't work, stone, for example. I'm not a mason. Like, if you're working stone, like, even like, can you make your marks disappear, like where you were chipping? And like, I don't know how that works.
Probably not with granite. I mean, especially with old technology, probably not with granite because granite is such a hard rock. I mean, it's one of the hardest rocks out there. So it'd be kind of hard to smooth over, tool marks on a rock that's that hard.
Okay. Well, shoot.
Well, not to mention you'd have a hard time getting that, outcropping of rock at the top part of the footprint too. I mean, I don't know how you would do that.
Fair enough. And like, I guess to be fair, I don't think a lot of people would think of that detail unless they're autistic.
Hey.
It's like, oh, let's make it look like he stepped in mud and then dragged that mud with him as he was lifting his foot. Like,
hey, Ben. I just had a great thought. You remember how right here he said that people are leaving coins there?
Yeah.
If I ever get a lot of money together, I'm going to go and I'm going to see this thing, but I'm going to go at night and I'm going to leave a nice fucking round soft serve turd right there.
Take a big dump in it.
Fuck yeah. That'd be great. Like, I'm going to leave it like all like swirled up like if you were a Dairy Queen getting a soft serve cone.
Wow, Andy.
So just eat a lot of mangoes on your flight.
Might even put a cherry on top of it.
Jesus.
I
Crazy.
I was exhausted just listening to him walk up the hill. Like it was like, here we are at the footprints, as you can see. Like that was exhausting.
Get on now, piggy, squeal. Get on now, boy.
All right, so around the world, there have been similar footprints found embedded in age-old rock. In San Jose, which I believe is in California, a 2.5-meter footprint was found near a local ranch. Whatever made it would have towered over even the giant from Empul Uzi. In the same city, another 1.5-meter footprint was found on a cliff. In August 2016 in Guizhou, China. Something like that. A series of footprints was discovered with each footprint nearly 2 feet long and indented nearly 3 centimeters into solid rock. Scientists have calculated that whatever made the prints would have to be over 13 feet tall. In 1912, a 4-foot-long print was unearthed in South Africa that was dated at over 200 million years old. Whatever humanoid made the print would have to have been over 27 feet tall.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, you go back to the dinosaurs, and I know you're going to say this, Andy. I know the T-Rex is a lot bigger than this. It was like 40 feet long, but the way that it's hunched over, the way it stood in its normal posture, the T-Rex was between like 12 and 14 feet tall from the ground to the top of its head. So these giants would have towered over a T-Rex.
So if they ever got in a fight with one, it would have been something similar to like what you saw in King Kong when he fights the T-Rexes.
Possibly. And
Well,
T-Rex
like
would have literally fucked their face.
You're gonna trust that mouthful of teeth when you stick your friggin' wiener in there.
Hey, desperate ancient giants may not have had many options. Gouge out their eyeball and skull fuck them.
Ronnie,
next thing, next thing, I think I'll try giving that Mosasaurus a ride.
As usual, Ronnie's going straight to the nuclear option.
That what that must do.
Saracana.
Let's get it by the tail and slam that T-Rex butthole.
I mean, it sounds like this tall son of a bitch just could have like ripped a tree from its roots and used it to like wail at a dinosaur. I don't know.
So, all right, the giants of Death Valley. In 1931, a physician by the name of F. Bruce Russell discovered some caves and tunnels in Death Valley and decided to explore them. What they at first assumed to be a small cave system turned out to go on for 180 square miles. And check out this one.
All civilizations have their stories of ancient giants, huge beings that roamed the earth thousands of years ago. But 60 years ago, a man claimed that he had found an underground civilization, complete with treasure, armor, strange inscriptions, and the bodies of 9-foot giants. He thought it might have been the ancient continent of Atlantis.
Hey, can you guys still see this?
Yep.
Okay. I stopped the video.
The only problem, it was under Death Valley. The idea that the vast desert might have once been home to an ancient civilization yet undiscovered is an old one. But giants, 9 feet tall? It's not that strange. as almost all religions and creation myths talk about an age of giants that walked the earth long before the rise of modern humans. But today's story doesn't come from ancient inscriptions or divine revelation. It comes from something a little bit more mundane, the pages of a modern newspaper. The article in question appeared in a California newspaper in August of 1947. It claimed that an expedition had just returned from the searing heat of Death Valley with a most incredible tale. While crossing the hot desert floor, they had fallen through the ground into a vast series of caves, tunnels, and vaulted passageways that went on for miles. They described it as an underground city buried and lost for ages. Inside, the walls were covered with strange inscriptions that they could not read or even recognize, and strange statues stood silent guard, representing a culture as yet unknown. Further into the tunnels, the expedition was also astounded to find the remains of extinct ancient animals, along with the preserved pelts of creatures.
What's up?
That looked like some stone buttocks from like 4 or 5 seconds ago.
Shit, if Ronnie was in there, he'd be trying to peg him.
I'd have been. If I found that place, I'd have been shooting ropes all over that place.
Creatures not seen since the last ice age. But it was the grisly discoveries that awaited them deeper within the tunnels that dazzled the expedition the most. Mummified human bodies. And not just any mummies, but the remains of human beings of exceptional height and girth. In some cases, the bodies measured over 9 feet in length.
The meek shall inherit the girth.
I have exceptional girth.
Oh, fuck.
Giants in every sense of the word. Some of the bodies had jewels and treasure around them, while others lay close to huge weapons and armor, causing the expedition members to consider them warriors of some as yet unknown great civilization. But what civilization? Here the spokesman for the group, one Howard Hill, made an even more extraordinary claim, that the underground city and network of tunnels with all its amazing artifacts must have belonged to no other people than the inhabitants of the lost city of Atlantis.
That was Seattle for a second.
Well, as you can surmise, scientists weren't exactly blown away by the expedition's.
The lost city of Atlantis in Death Valley, California.
Well, again, if we're talking about untold numbers of years ago, this could have been when Pangea was still united, right?
Sounds legit.
Well, I mean, but Atlantis wasn't anywhere near California. If the Greeks knew about it. I mean, wasn't it who was it? Was it Plato that wrote about Atlantis?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I give Atlantis credence, because it's not, he wasn't one who like wrote fucking fantasy novels. He was like a historian for his time.
Yeah, a philosopher too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think that if Atlantis existed, it wasn't anywhere near Death Valley.
It seems like sometimes I don't know, because I don't research these fields enough, but it seems like Atlantis is just like a lazy go-to for a lot of people. It's like, I don't know, it's probably Atlantis, you know?
But there were probably other advanced civilizations way back in the day. I mean, a lot of people talk about them. That's Tartaria.
Well, the only thing that we know
Lemuria.
the only thing we know from Plato about where Atlantis was is that it lay beyond the pillars of Hercules. So at the entrance to the Atlantic Ocean from the Mediterranean, the Strait of Gibraltar, I think.
Yep.
It was like right there is supposedly where the pillars of Hercules were, and it lay beyond them, meaning out in the Atlantic somewhere. And that's all we know about it. Nothing really about exactly where.
Yep.
Awesome, excellent. And who's to say they didn't send out colonizers? So they could have just transported their culture with them.
Or they
Well,
could have left the planet.
Atlantis couldn't have been that advanced because the ancient Greeks, led by the Athenians, according to Plato, defeated the Atlanteans when they tried to invade. So, I mean, I don't know.
All right. So one of the first things they discovered was some kind of ritual or religious hall covered in strange hieroglyphics. But stranger still was the discovery of 9-foot tall human skeletons. The story was first officially reported in a San Diego newspaper in 1947. The remains were mummified and were estimated to be around 80,000 years old. Okay. They found 9-foot tall mummies. It was reported in a San Diego newspaper in 1947. How did they manage to bury this?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And again, I just maybe some of it is like ego, like, oh, we were wrong about the earth, everybody, or about human civilization. But at the same time, if I'm running a local like museum, I'm like, give me the fucking bones. I'm putting this on display. I'm literally gonna be able to buy California with all the incoming wealth that I'll generate. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but this doesn't make any sense though, because it was reported publicly in a newspaper in 1947. I mean, even to this day, people aren't going to forget something like that. 9-foot tall mummies. I mean, we're not talking just bones here. These are mummies.
Right. And a cave right full of them, too.
80,000-year-old mummies. I mean, even to this day, officially, the mummies that we have aren't any older than 6,000 or 7,000 years.
Right.
80,000 years. I mean, come on now. They wouldn't be able to hide this. I don't know what's going on here, but I got my bullshit flag is raised.
Yeah, I need to agree on that.
All right, so
I think it's legit.
The Lovelock Cave. From 2600 BC to the mid 1800s, Lovelock Cave in Nevada was supposedly in use by a race of red-haired cannibal giants. Now, this leads into the giant of Kandahar, a red-haired cannibal giant.
Oh!
Where did I see it? Okay. The mythical Kandahar giant, the biblical cryptid, allegedly killed by U.S. Special Forces in Afghanistan. You know what? We can get into this after. We're going to do the Kandahar giant. I mean, we don't have a lot of time, so we kind of got to zip through this a little bit. So, the red-haired cannibal giants. Unlike other giant races, we know why this one went extinct. They were cannibals.
You are hairy like animal.
Which made them very unpopular with the Paiute Indians who lived in the same area and who didn't like being on the Giants' menu. There was a very long war between the Paiutes and the Giants, with the Giants being forced to retreat again and again until the cave was the only safe place for them. But even from the cave, they continued to hunt and eat the Paiute, until the Paiute lit a huge bonfire at the mouth of the cave. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. So, the first evidence of these humanoids was discovered in the late 1800s. The cave was excavated from 1912 to 1924. And 40 storage pits were unearthed containing thousands of duck decoys made of light wood, fishing gear, bark sandals up to 15 inches long, huge moccasins, shell beads, even a wooden grasshopper. In total, 20,000 artifacts were discovered. The thick layers of bat guano in the cave, which smothered the oldest storage pits, allowed the relic to be dated back to 2600 BC. Even before Lovick Cave was officially discovered in 1911, the Paiute Indians who lived in the area had known about it for thousands of years. The remains of an 11-foot tall giant were discovered nearby in 1904. In 1911, James Hart and David Poog, I think it's Pew, I don't know, got the rights to dig and sell the guano, which was used to make gunpowder in those days from the Lovick Cave. They had gone only a few feet into the cave when they found the body of a man 6 foot 6 inches tall. His body was mummified and his hair was distinctly red, which would be an anomaly to have red hair and be a Native American. I don't think Native Americans had red hair.
Doubt it.
No, they were predominantly black hair.
Yep. So they discovered many other normal-sized mummies, but a few were 8 to 10 feet tall. There were also many giant-sized handprints embedded in the cave walls. Yeah. So, to find a mummy with red hair in North America that dates to 2600 BC. That would be cause for questioning.
I'd say so.
Yep. So, Wisconsin giants. Scientists are remaining stubbornly silent about a lost race of giants found in some burial mounds near Lake Delavan in Wisconsin in May 1912. As reported in the New York Times 4th of May 1912 issue, the 18 skeletons found by the Pearson brothers exhibited several strange, freakish features. Well, here's a little picture for you right here. 2 normal-sized men and the giant. Their heights range from 7.6 feet to 10 feet, and their skulls are much larger than those of any humans that inhabited America or that inhabit America today. They tend to have a double row of teeth, elongated heads, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and like humans, came in different races. This is only one of many accounts of giant skeletons found in Wisconsin. And now they go into the cover-up, which we already talked about. The Smithsonian found all these skeletons and destroyed them. So now we'll get into
them and destroy them.
We'll get into the giant of Kandahar. I know we've mentioned this in previous episodes. We never really got into the story. So this is by Bernadette Giacomazo. Something like that. Checked by John Karosky. So, in 2002, an elite tactical team was said to have killed the Kandahar giant, a 13-foot tall beast with flaming red hair, 6 fingers on each hand, and 2 sets of teeth. So that goes back to that last part of the article we were reading before. Double rows of teeth and 6 digits on each hand.
And red hair.
So he's Scottish.
Yeah, see, but there's a parallel. There's a parallels here between the Giant of Kandahar story and these older stories. So, in August 2016, a YouTuber posted a lengthy interview with a military contractor identified only as Mr. K. Which I would have been more like, if it was me doing the interview and I had witnessed all this, I would have been more creative with my name. I would have called myself something like Mr. Joshua.
It's like when Steve Buscemi's character in Reservoir Dog doesn't want to be called Mr. Pink.
Or what's his name? Gary Busey's character in Lethal Weapon. Calls himself Mr. Joshua.
Yep.
So, Mr. K. In the interview, Mr. K claimed to have been present during the brutal slaughter of a killer he called the Kandahar Giant. The killing of the giant, he said, took place during the height of the Operation Enduring Freedom in 2002, when the military was engaged in fierce battles with the Taliban in their de facto capital in Kandahar province during the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. But this was no human fighter. The Kandahar Giant, Mr. K said, was 13 feet tall with fiery red hair, 6 fingers, and 2 sets of teeth. It even killed one of the Special Forces soldiers with a spear before the rest of the unit brought it down with 30 seconds of sustained gunfire, and after they radioed it in, the Army took away its corpse and has hidden it ever since. So, it looked something like this. Yep.
Looks like Gimli from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so after they killed that bitch, they loaded that bitch on a helicopter and flew his ass out of God knows where.
He said it came out, it had a spear and a shield.
Yep.
Like some kind of, like, ancient weaponry type.
Looks like a friggin' giant Viking, dude. Minus the war paint. Is that the cave?
I don't know.
Probably is. Look at the bones. He's got a kill streak a mile wide as a color.
His name is Tim.
To some, I am known as Tim.
Tim?
Yeah. I wonder if that actually is the cave. I mean, look at these are the soldiers down here. They're probably, almost 6 feet tall with all their shit on, the helmet and everything.
The cave is definitely big enough.
That cave is definitely big enough for a 13-foot giant to walk out. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so
Very.
feet tall, forces 30 seconds. Yeah. Legend of the Kandahar Giant. Blah blah blah. In 2002, a group of soldiers went missing while on patrol in a remote mountain region of Kandahar in the south of Afghanistan. And when they failed to make radio contact for some time, the military sent in special ops unit to investigate, though the branch of the armed forces they belonged to was never confirmed. Then, high up in the mountains, the unit came across a cave with scattered army equipment around, but no sign of the missing soldiers. And that's when they chanced upon the Kandahar Giant. Though the tale grows with the telling, with some reports suggesting that the humanoid grew as tall as 15 feet, this red-headed giant with 6 digits, leather moccasins, and smelling like dead bodies suddenly emerged from the cave and impaled one of the soldiers with a spear. And that's when the soldiers opened fire, ultimately felling the giant with 30 seconds of continuous fire. Between them, the squad was armed with full auto M4 carbines. Okay. Now I'm going to call bullshit. Because the M4s only go to 3-shot burst. Wait. Do the Spec Ops guys carry full auto lowers?
Some M4s do have full auto lowers.
The only ones I ever seen had 3-shot burst and semi. That was it. Anyways.
Yeah, special ops may have different stuff. So.
Recon carbines, semi-automatic, and M107 Barrett anti-material rifles firing 50. So they had 50 cal Barretts. That's enough to take down a 15-foot giant. So This much firepower concentrated on one target for 1 second, let alone 30, would be extremely destructive. After the troops killed the giant, they loaded it onto a Chinook helicopter, which carried it to a transport plane where no one ever saw it again. The soldiers were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements so the government could keep them all quiet. But eventually, the soldiers broke their silence because, as one of the men would later say, people have a right to know. How the government's denial fueled more conspiracy theories. In August 2016, Snopes reached out to the Department of Defense about the Kandahar giant incident. The Department of Defense told the outlet in no uncertain terms that they had no record or information about a Special Forces member killed by a giant in Kandahar. What's more, there are no press releases on the Department of Defense's website involving either a Special Forces troop disappearing in Afghanistan or of any incident involving soldiers felling a giant. No, because what they would have done if a Special Forces troop disappeared in Afghanistan, turns out a giant killed them, they would have made up a story like a helicopter went down and killed the whole team.
Yeah, what's funny is when I was in Iraq and in 2005 and 2006, I heard not the whole story, but I heard about a giant in Afghanistan that was killed by Special Forces. I heard it back all the way back when I was in Iraq.
Yeah.
So
No.
I don't know.
Of course, as with any good conspiracy, this lack of evidence isn't sufficient proof that the myth of the Kandahar giant doesn't exist. In fact, Snopes' debunking of the legend has had quite the opposite effect in certain cryptid spaces, which claims that the government is trying to hide the truth from the public. About the same time that the Snopes article came out that discredited the story, self-proclaimed supernaturalist L.A. Marzulli told several right-wing websites that the United States government was covering up this spectacular story and that those in power had a vested interest in keeping the truth of biblical prophecies from being exposed to the general public. People have a right to know about this stuff. If there are 15 or 18 footers roaming the earth and our military has brought them down, we have a right as American citizens to know about it. I mean, this isn't classified military stuff. This is something we need to know, and it points back to the biblical prophetic narrative. Well, shit. So the real story of the Kandahar giant is a lot less interesting than the myth. In 2016, L.A. Marzulli, whose YouTube channel is dedicated to tying current events to biblical prophecies, brought the story roaring back to life thanks to the power of the internet. In a now deleted video first posted on August 16th, 2016, Marzulli interviewed Mr. K, a man purporting to be a soldier who said he witnessed the giant of Kandahar. Mr. K claimed he saw the giant carrying a spear and murdering a United States soldier named Dan before he and the other special forces took it down. According to Marzulli, the creature was a Nephilim, a group of people mentioned in the Genesis and Numbers books of the Old Testament who were said to be people of unusually large size and strength. That could be found in the Middle East both before and after the flood of Noah's Ark. But biblical scholars largely agree that the Nephilim tales were metaphors and not based on the reality of a 13-foot giant living in the desert. Well, of course, biblical scholars who work for colleges and governments would say something like that. So, what's more, the only Dan that died in Kandahar around the time of this alleged incident in 2002 was Sergeant First Class Daniel A. Romero, who was killed in a bomb blast alongside 3 other soldiers. But even with the evidence stacked against it, the myth of Kandahar giant is still said to be an open secret among soldiers who served in Kandahar in 2002, and several veterans who served in the region have said that from that point on, they were instructed to point their weapons high by aiming for the head and then a little higher. Whatever that's supposed to mean. Why would you aim higher than the head? Then the bullets would go over the head and you don't hit your target.
Well, they're talking about aim for the head of a normal sized person, or where that would be, and then aim a little higher. That's your kill shot for the giant.
Or aim above your own head, right? So
Yeah, basically.
Oh, something like that. So,
but remember what they say, put 32 in the chest and 16 in the head.
That's right.
yeah, I don't remember this picture here is a picture of a giant they're excavating. It's a legit archaeological dig site, and I believe it's somewhere in Asia. But you see the bone, you see the skeleton, but you see these bones. It has what looks like some type of a python wrapped around it. Snake.
Yep. Wonder if that snake killed him.
Might have. But of all the pictures that I've looked at today, like before we started recording and everything, this one looks the most legit to me. It doesn't look photoshopped. This looks like a legit dig.
Yeah.
Possible.
And this giant is easily 18 feet. Easily. Because you see this woman. Is that a woman? Yeah, I think it's a woman. She's probably, 5'8"-ish, 5'9". Maybe shorter. But you see the size of the giant compared to her. It's a normal sized person.
Yep.
So, don't know. Could all be fake, and I just have shitty eyes. It's always a possibility. But, yep. Then, of course, there's this absolute fakeness. I mean, you're talking about a Godzilla-sized fucking human here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's fake.
Oh, we got a Cyclops.
Nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's photoshopped. The shit.
That's a sculpture. These are real. I know these are real because that was on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, but they're not giants.
No, they're just deformed skulls. Here's another one that looks fairly real to me.
Yep.
That is one big head. See, the skull is right here. Do you think that if you were David, Ben, you think you could take this thing out with a sling and a rock the size of a friggin' golf ball?
Well, no, but David didn't have to face Nephilim. he probably faced like a 6'5", 7 foot tall dude.
True.
Probably. Hey, there he is right there. See? Got cracked in the head with a fucking rock.
It's him.
It's him.
Look at that. Look at
It's
that.
fucking Goliath.
Look at that
Said
overbite, though.
I should have remembered the rocks.
Hey, he looks like an overprivileged square jaw. His jaw does look square, doesn't it?
Yep.
You overprivileged square jaw.
Wasn't that my guy?
That's a friggin' Neanderthal. Something like that. Anyway. Oh, what do we got here? Irish giant skeleton may finally be buried after being on display for more than 200 years. That's in
Look at the
Ireland.
neck on that thing.
Hell yeah, that thing's got some big ass neck.
It's been part giraffe.
It's the Brontosaurus of friggin' humans.
He was able to reach the leaves off the tallest trees.
The hell just happened?
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, that's right. Shit, I forgot about that one.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's just about it, buddy. But all I have on giants.
Sounds about right.
Oh yeah, I ain't shitting ya.
Remember, kids, not everything is as it seems.
Imagine
Hashtag do
this.
your own research.
Imagine all the mythical, magical creatures you've ever heard about are all real. Aliens, Bigfoot, the Rake, witches, ghosts, vampires, werewolves,
Wendigo.
Wendigo. What if every single mythical creature or supernatural entity you've ever heard of were all real?
Spooky.
And they're all furiously pegging each other.
Oh my god, yeah, and they sound something like this.
That damn Sasquatch.
Anyways,
Horny bastard.
right? So yeah, if you've listened this far, congratulations. And hope you enjoyed our TED Talk. This is Supernatural Beer Bros. You can find us on pretty much any podcast platform. Our email is supernaturalbeerbros@gmail.com. Our Instagram is SBBpod. So you can hit us up on the email or SBBpod DMs. If you got any bitches, gripes, complaints, suggestions, you want to comment, or if you want to hit me up and ask if you want to be on the show, I'm certainly open to that. As long as you're cool and you're not too easily offended.
Yeah, no snowflakes.
Mm-hmm. And what else? You got anything, Ben? Giants. What do we got on the fat scale? Anybody?
I think
Bueller.
that they're absolutely obese.
Yeah.
Straight up 1,000-pound life obese.
Yeah. I'll give them the Green Bay Packers fan on the fat scale. Eating nothing but cheese, cabbage, and beer. Benjamin.
I don't know where Ben went, but no, time to go to bed.
Anyways, yep. So we got him on the fat scale. We're good to go. Ben, if you're trying to talk, you're muted. I don't know because I can't see you. Your video's not on. I'll take that as a no.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Ben.
What's up?
Hey, where do you got Giants on the fat scale?
I mean, it's hard to say because, like, again, if I was the person discovering these things, or if I was at the museums, I'd be putting them on display the next hour, because then I'm going to charge like $100 a pop in, 1920s money and fucking, outbid, Standard Oil and the Rothschilds.
Yeah, until Uncle
So
Sam came in with his big red, white, and blue friggin' hammer of a weenie and just smashed them all up.
So part of me doesn't understand why they would want to destroy these things. I mean, I kind of get the whole part of some people having their egos hurt because it's like, oh, it disproves our worldview, but that's what science is supposed to do. It's supposed to roll with the changes.
Hey, that 20-foot giant has a bigger wiener than I do. I gotta smash it now.
A 20-foot giant's wiener is probably about as big as you.
Yep.
So I'm a little agnostic, I guess, about it. I mean, Nephilim, the Bible talks about Nephilim. These creatures, I don't know what they were supposed to look like or their characteristics. And, I think it varies. Like that footprint in the sediment, that's pretty convincing. Other things aren't so convincing because, like, there's no, like no evidence provided. So I'm a little mixed bag on it.
So you're slightly lower, slightly thinner than fit. Is that
Yeah,
what you're getting at?
probably. I mean, again, I think this is one of those topics where it depends on which one you're speaking about, I guess.
I guess giants in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's mixed bag for me, honestly.
Okay. So we'll go with on a scale of 1 to 10, we'll go with a 4 for you, I think.
Sure. Go for it.
All right. So there's our final thoughts. Do your own research. You think what you will. I think they're real. But yeah, so this has been Supernatural Beer Bros podcast, and we are signing out.